Sarah, you know this from covering so many trials. If you have a witness saying, look, I'm not going to answer your questions. You ask me something I don't want you to ask me, we're going to have a problem in here. We all know judges who would have shut that down immediately. But I think because he didn't have that firsthand knowledge, that's why he was given a little latitude. But it certainly helped jurors understand the competition between these sections.
Yeah, the infighting and the cross gang fighting as well. You mentioned something, and I'll go ahead and highlight this moment when you see this testimony where he addresses what he hopes happens to the defendant, even though he says he doesn't like it. Listen.
I don't think much. I still think it's important, but you asked me the question. If I explain to him, I don't want to send him to prison. Sure. Even though we don't like each other. Sure.
Curious, Arena, as you're watching this, did this testimony help further the prosecution's case, or did it potentially hurt their case?
Well, I think, Sarah, the issue here is the prosecution uses witnesses to try to establish a retaliation that is a big part of their case. As you know, this case for the prosecution is basically their efforts to prove that there's been an altercation at the MGM Hotel after the Mike Tyson fight, and that this shooting of Tupac's report was retaliation for the fight that had happened earlier in the day. And this witness could attest to the fact that he was there was security, there was a fight that was happening, and that these two factions were warring at the time. Clearly, as Josh said, a very difficult witness made it very clear to the defense attorney that he believed that the defendant was talking too much, that this was against the code of ethics that these gang members or former gang members have. So I think he did the prosecution some good in terms of his testimony, but he also helped the defense because he said, look, I'm not going to give too many names. So he did not give the testimony that Dwayne Davis was at the scene when the shooting actually occurred, which is what the defense is arguing all along. This is one big fictional story, and that Dwayne Davis actually had nothing to do with this murder.
Right, and Dwayne Davis himself, the only person so far that we have heard say that he was a part of this was Dwayne Davis himself in past interviews with police and his book and some of the things that he said publicly on podcasts and in documentaries. Josh, I am curious about the scene there, what you're seeing around all of this, because this has been 30 years in the making, and so much culturally has been said about what happened here with all kinds of conspiracies and accusations about rival gangs and the East Coast, West Coast battle.
Millions of reporters, people will naturally, well, what's happening here? And murder trial, some people are too options. What are their thoughts? What's their history? What are their views on these? That will be interesting. Also, I'll note is that one thing that we saw in court yesterday that was impactful were autopsy photos that were shown to the jurors. I think that's important because up now we talk kind of theoretically, someone shot Tupac died. You have to imagine how impactful that